Hello everyone, my name is Stoyan Stoyanov and I'm from the University of Bath. Welcome to this webinar. We're about to go over the Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Management program, and we're going to touch upon the program's building blocks. In addition, we're going to discuss a very hot topic in entrepreneurship nowadays, the topic of e-commerce. This is what we're going to discuss during the session today. We're going to explore a bit the topic e-commerce, and in particular, we're going to focus on how we can engage in the process of opportunity testing for an e-commerce business. This will be a very practical exercise, which will give you a taster of how we approach teaching and learning at the University of Bath. After that, we'll have the chance to discuss more about the program. You'll have the chance to ask a question, either related to e-commerce or related to the program. We're going to leave the Q&A until the very end. So if a question occurs to your mind during the webinar, just put it down and make sure you ask me later. So on this slide, you can see just a picture of myself, really. On the next slide, you can see a bit more information about me. So in terms of my research and experience, I'm interested in solving real-world problems in various contexts. This has motivated me to participate in projects with direct impact. To just give a few examples, I have explored how transnational entrepreneurs orchestrate resources from multiple countries, how migrants can become entrepreneurs, what the transition is for that, how governments can facilitate business startup and growth, how big organizations can become more entrepreneurial, as well as more recently, I've started to explore how e-commerce can help poverty reduction among farmers. So here you can see a beautiful scenery of our university. And let's kick off with a few thoughts about the program and the University of Bath. The university is consistently recognized for its research and teaching excellence. We score very high on various rankings within the UK as well as internationally. The excellent reputation of the university is valued by our students who chose us over other institutions. And this allows us pretty much to attract the brightest students from around the world. And employers, they love our graduates because of the critical thinking and their abilities to make real impact. And this also is shown by the high ranking for graduate prospects that we have. And on the next slide, you can see that we're doing particularly well in the entrepreneurship and management in that market, in that master space. We score highly on a number of reputable rankings. So without any doubt, this is a good place to be. Our students have become accomplished professionals who are always in high demand. And now a few things about the program. It's a master's in entrepreneurship, management and innovation program. So as you can tell by the name, the program is about entrepreneurship, but also it steps on some of the pillars that every business steps on, namely the successful management of innovation within the organization. And you can see a quick overview of the program here. So this program is designed in a way that allows you to reflect on your own abilities and experiences and think of them as marketable assets around which you can build a company. We focus on the analysis of business opportunities. We explore what constitutes a viable business opportunity and how to bring it forward, how to execute it to the, in the actual market. So the units of the program benefit from case studies in real businesses. Many of those businesses are located within the Bath and Bristol area, which is a well-known hub for entrepreneurship within the UK. So these case studies outline the real challenges entrepreneurs face, their real thoughts, their real actions. So you can clearly see not only the business side of the entrepreneurial journey, but also the emotional side. So going through the program, you'll be equipped with different frameworks, processes that will help you initiate your own entrepreneurial journey. You can test different business models and see which one of the ideas you have would actually fit the market. And we can then think about a particular business model that will even enhance even further your idea. You will learn how to think critically about how the business is developed and how it can be scaled up over time. Of course, when we speak about business growth, this is a process accompanied by lots of challenges, but you'll be in a good position to understand the challenges and adjust so that you can overcome those challenges. So the program will really test and further your creativity levels. And by the end of the program, you can clearly see that basically every problem is potentially a great opportunity for business. And of course, you're going to have the tools to claim ownership of this opportunity. You can see a graphic which represents the way the program looks. It gives you a visual of the different units that we have in the program. And I will just walk you through this graphic. So the journey starts from the very middle. So you can think of this graphic as an onion with different layers. And we're going to build up the entrepreneurial journey, if you wish, from the inside out. So the very first unit is called Fundamentals of Entrepreneurship. And it's part of this is pretty much understanding yourself and your own aspirations for entrepreneurship. And this, of course, helps you to initiate that entrepreneurial journey that I mentioned a couple of times already. So this figure in the middle that you can see, this figure is actually you. So everything starts from a reflection, everything starts from thinking about your own interest, ideas, and taking it further and forward. So the next layer is about the basics of business and management in general. There are 4 units there. So we have customer interface, we have operations and organization design, we have financial models, as well as entrepreneurial strategy. So this is the next layer. Once this is completed, we will move to the next layer, and this will be about the entrepreneurial process. There we start with a sequence of 3 units. The first one is entrepreneurial ideation, then we have incubation as well as acceleration. These are very important steps of the entrepreneurial journey. And then we will add some more specialized knowledge on intellectual property as well as entrepreneurial finance and funding. And these are very important elements of every entrepreneurial journey, I would say. The next layer out puts everything together. There we have 2 overarching units. The first one is called Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Organization. This unit will help you understand the role of entrepreneurship and innovation within the context of existing organizations. And the second unit we have there is Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Society, which allows you to understand the role of entrepreneurship in society in general, and how entrepreneurs can add to improving the society. How can they deliver social impact? Nowadays, we recognize that the entrepreneurs are not only for profit, but they also are very motivated to alleviate some sort of social problems. So once all of this is done, you will have a project to complete. It's a personal project, and it can be built around your own business if you have one, or if you want to start one, or if you want to do it on leading corporate change, you can as well do this as the topic of your project, or growing a family business, or driving a social enterprise. There's many options of where you can take that project to. So going through all that will lead to significant skill development. The program is structured in such a way that you'll be revisiting some of the knowledge introduced in the inner layers of the onion. And as you're progressing through the outer layers, your knowledge, of course, will become more in-depth and more practical. So this is always a good thing, because we want this program to be as practical as possible. And of course, it's very much informed by practice every step of the way. So in terms of career opportunities, where can the program take you in terms of career? Well, the program gives you a path to many opportunities and different business areas. Organizations of different type are increasingly looking for individuals with entrepreneurial thinking, entrepreneurial skills, because such organizations, they would like to grow or they would like to implement new initiatives, and they need the people who are equipped with entrepreneurial skills that will help them accomplish those endeavors, either within an existing organization or by having individuals creating a totally new organization, a new company. The university is very well established when it comes to contributing to both domains, the domain of entrepreneurship within existing companies, but also entrepreneurship outside existing companies. The university is part of the Z² partnership, and Z² is known as the world's #1 university-based incubator and accelerator. So basically, this organization helps businesses to grow and get funding. So you can get all kinds of very practical support by reaching out to this organization. And of course, being part of the University of Bath, you have all the doors open. Also, your career prospects will strengthen, and part of this would be because we have excellent career support services here at the university, and they're just great, and they make all kinds of opportunities available to students. There's all kinds of services that they provide in terms of strengthening your CV, cover letter, motivation letter, etc. So certainly a good resource for extra information. Okay, we've been going through the program details quite quickly, I have to say, but I'll give you an opportunity to ask for questions later. Now, let's have a look at a very contemporary topic, the topic of e-commerce. This is something I'm particularly passionate about, so hopefully you will get to share my passion after this webinar. So on this next slide, we introduce the topic of e-commerce, and we start off with a simple short definition of e-commerce. And it, of course, is a type of commerce that takes advantage of latest technological developments and the electronic networks that we use on a daily basis nowadays. There are different types of e-commerce depending on the target audience we have in mind. Today, we're going to focus exclusively on the business to consumers type of e-commerce, but we should bear in mind there's different types of e-commerce. So we're going to look at how businesses can be set up to target just regular customers, something that we experience as customers perhaps on a daily basis. Now we're going to look at what happens behind the curtain, what happens on the other side, on the business side. So why is e-commerce important? To begin with, I would like to point out that e-commerce carries huge business potential. So on this next slide, you can see some recent statistic. E-commerce has been growing every year for many years now by at least 20%. And at the same time, the majority of businesses still have not jumped on that wagon. So this is especially true when we consider e-commerce across borders, when we consider cross-border e-commerce. I would argue that e-commerce is a great opportunity for startups to get involved in business, not only because of the size of the market and the still relatively smaller competition, but also because in a digital marketplace, it's very difficult for customers to know that you're operating as a very new, very small, or perhaps even a foreign company. In this way, they cannot perhaps discriminate against your size as a small company, against your novelty. So in that way, your company will not suffer from liabilities of newness, smallness, and foreignness. What I mean by these terms is just the extra cost that companies pay for being small, new, or foreign. And that cost typically is in terms of lost profit. So on the next slide, you can see that e-commerce or digital presence in general can help entrepreneurs to check if their business idea is an actual opportunity. So this is before the entrepreneurs spend too much money or time trying to push a product to the market. And e-commerce can help us determine whether there is stable demand for this product. And here is how it works. I will show you this next chart. So on this slide, you can see that there are two options that entrepreneurs are facing when releasing a product to the market. So the first option is they make the best product, the best possible product, and then release it. And the second option is that they build and release very limited product. Maybe this product will have not too many features. It will be quite limited in terms of features. So maybe this product will not be perfect. It will not be ideal. But the idea behind that second option is just to release early, release anyway, despite all the limitations, and try to get feedback as much as possible, and then adapt the product based on the actual feedback that we gather. In this way, we will limit the amount we spend on product development, which is typically a significant amount of money. And we can also be sure that the product we release will be most relevant to the particular target market that we have in mind. Okay. Keep in mind that option 2 does not work for every single industry. Okay. For example, operating within the pharmaceutical industry requires that entrepreneurs definitely take option 1. They don't have a choice. But for e-commerce businesses, most companies at the phase of inception, at the startup phase, they're taking option 2 because they can tap on the market very, very quickly and test whether the product or the idea itself is actually feasible. So as you can see on the next slide, utilizing option 2, which is commonly known as minimum viable product or minimum viable logic, it's all about validated learning. Collecting and analyzing feedback is crucial for entrepreneurs as it can be used to validate or refute their assumptions. Therefore, entrepreneurs in the digital space, they often utilize test marketing techniques just to test their assumption. They don't want to spend too much money if there is no actual opportunity. So we can quickly go through some of the approaches for test marketing that most e-commerce businesses adopt or have adopted at some point. And I will provide you with some examples of companies that use those particular approaches to establish their strong digital presence. So on this next slide, you can see some very interesting names here. These are the names of actual techniques or approaches. We have explainer video, we have landing page, crowdfunding, Wizard of Oz MVP, and concierge MVP. Let's go quickly through each one of those and see what each one is all about. So the first one is the explainer video. As you can see on this slide, we can take an explainer video and use it as a tool to help us validate assumptions that we may have towards a particular product. So very often entrepreneurs in the digital space would post a simple video that explains what the product is all about. Sometimes they release such videos before they even develop the actual product. So this is the key part here. They use such videos just to measure the interest of the audience for such product, whether there is any demand. And this allows them to check if their idea is an actual opportunity, and they can check that in a very affordable way without spending too much money. So let me show you a couple of screenshots of a video that Dropbox used before they even developed their application, their product. So here you can see that the video was very cheap to produce. It was pretty much made out of paper cuts. And on the next slide, you can see that they used the analogy of a magic pocket to explain to their audience how the product would work. The key point was that if you put anything in this magic pocket, it cannot be lost. You need to keep in mind that at this time, everyday people, they didn't know much about cloud computing or cloud servers. The general assumption of the public was that only big companies can benefit from this type of technology. So Dropbox, they decided to use an explainer video to challenge this common assumption. And again, on the next slide, you can see another selling point that they were making. In fact, the file will be synchronized across multiple devices and systems. So on this last screenshot, you can see really the simplicity of the video. Yet, we can argue that it worked very well. So why video, you may ask? Well, this next slide shows you that people are hardwired to take in information via the use of visuals. So companies that use videos increase their chances of conversion, which is basically selling their products, by up to 85% compared to simply text or images. So it should not come as a surprise that nowadays, for example, YouTube is already the second most popular search engine after Google, simply because, again, people are inclined to take information in visual ways through videos. Okay, we go to the next tool now, the tool named landing page. So this is another technique for testing if an idea is actually a business opportunity. And we can use that landing page. A landing page is basically a web page where visitors land after clicking a link from an ad, email, or any sort of digital marketing campaign. So one of the good things about landing pages is that you can split the traffic to two separate landing pages and then compare and check which landing page performs better in terms of generating more sales. In this way, you can put two different prices in each page and see whether the price difference actually influences the number of sales. This is something commonly known as testing the price elasticity. So very often, online businesses conducting e-commerce take advantage of the landing page technique. One business that adopted this strategy was Buffer. So on this next slide, you can see the founder of Buffer. Buffer is pretty much a software application designed to manage accounts in social media, typically for influencers. So influencers that adopt Buffer, they pretty much can create schedule of their posts. So pretty much a timeline of when the post or a picture will be published in Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's pretty much like a calendar for social networks. And on the next slide, you can see that the founder of Buffer also added a box where web visitors could submit their email addresses. This proved to be very valuable for after the product was developed. Again, this landing page was created before the product was developed. So the owner, the founder, did not have to invest too much money. And that landing page also allowed him to test multiple price options. The next tool is the Wizard of Oz MVP. So it's the next tactic that I would like to share with you. So the idea behind this tactic is that most people would only buy from you if they perceive the post-purchase process as almost fully automated. Full automation is believed to reduce the likelihood of human error. Nevertheless, this is very expensive to build. Often it's too expensive for startups to build full automation. Okay, they may have the website, but everything that happens before, behind the curtain, may not be fully automated. For that reason, the Wizard of Oz MVP suggests that we can fake it before we make it. What stands behind this idea is the idea that things can be done manually without letting your customers know. Okay, this will allow you to test if the idea is actually an opportunity, again, before you spend tons of money and time. A good example would be this company here called Zappos. Zappos is a company that utilizes fully this approach. It's one of the world's largest online shoe stores. Okay, it was actually acquired by Amazon for $1.2 billion, a significant amount of money. And on the next slide, you can see the story of this company. The founder of Zappos, he actually took photos of shoes at local shops, and then he posted them online. And if something was sold, he would go back to the same shop, buy the pair of shoes, and then ship it. A very manual, labor-intensive process, but it allowed the founder to challenge a common assumption at the time. This assumption was that people will never buy shoes online because they need to try them on, they need to walk a bit with those shoes, they need to check if the shoes are comfortable. So the founder scaled the business digitally only after he validated his assumptions by doing lots of manual work. So you can see how this Wizard of Oz MVP actually works very well in practice. The next technique for validated learning, it's called concierge MVP. Using this technique makes sense when starting a business as a digital one would be way too expensive. Similarly to the Wizard of Oz MVP, concierge MVP also suggests that the operations of the business need to be carried out manually at first. Yet, this time, you can be very upfront with your customers and tell them the truth, okay? You can tell them that this is going to be a manual service and you're going to cater for their needs, and it's part of the overall learning that you'd like to achieve. So this will allow the entrepreneur to learn the business operations inside out. Also, it will allow the founder to test all kinds of assumptions and check if the business idea is actually a feasible opportunity. And all that before even investing any money. So typically, again, just to reiterate, the development of digital infrastructure can be very, very expensive depending on the particular example. So on the next slide, I'd like to give you an example of a business that was started with this approach. Okay, this business is called Food on the Table. So the founder of the company had a very simple assumption. He believed that households will be interested in buying recipes for meals, but only if those meals can be cooked with food items or ingredients that are currently discounted by supermarkets. As you know, supermarkets, they reduce their prices of particular food items on a daily basis, particularly when the expiration date comes closer. So households can save tons of money if they knew where the discounted food was, what kind of type it was, and how they can prepare a meal out of it. So the value proposition of this company was very clear. However, the development of the digital infrastructure would have been too expensive to go forward and initiate. It would have required working with multiple dynamic databases that change as often as supermarkets change their prices. So before hiring people to create and maintain those databases, the entrepreneur stopped at a local supermarket and asked the people there if they would be interested in this whole idea, in this service. And he was willing to take a monthly payment of $9.95 and would do everything for them manually. So every couple of days, he would bring them a list of recipes and the locations where the discounted food items are. Of course, as you can imagine, this is lots of work. Perhaps this founder spent way more money on daily trips to the supermarket and then the clients than the money he actually generated from the sale of that service. But on the positive side, this allowed the person to get to know all the operations of the business, everything that the business demanded, and only later he could scale up the business digitally and invest in digital infrastructure. Okay, so now we have the next very, very common technique that startups in the digital sector actually utilize. They utilize crowdsourcing platforms or crowdfunding platforms. Good examples of those would be Kickstarter, Indiegogo, etc. They would simply put a video or a picture of the product and check how many people will pre-order. It's not necessarily because they're interested in getting investment from those crowdsourcing platforms, but they would like to see how many people are actually interested in those products. And nowadays, developing prototypes is much more affordable than back in the days. Shenzhen is known as the technological capital of the world nowadays, so many companies collaborate with manufacturing facilities, develop a prototype, put it on Kickstarter, and then see whether the wider audience would be interested. On the next slide, you can see that the key prerequisite for utilizing these techniques, everything that I mentioned so far, is that we generate feedback. Otherwise, we cannot learn about the process. But nowadays, people have very short attention span, so we cannot expect that they will readily provide us with this valuable feedback. So as entrepreneurs, we'll have to acquire them as our audience before we even try to convert them into paying customers. So this holds for regular businesses, but it also holds particularly for e-commerce businesses. Luckily, there's a list of techniques that we can adopt in order to pull customers in our sales funnel. And going to the next slide, we can see the techniques that we can utilize for pulling customers. Very often, getting visitors is linked to creating some free content for those customers or those visitors. For example, a blog with engaging content on a particular topic that our target audience may be interested in, a podcast, a free ebook with valuable content that they can download just for free, or perhaps just in exchange of their email address that we can then use for marketing outreach. And if we had time, we could go deeper in each one of those different ways of pulling customers in our sales funnel. But I would like to focus our attention now on a particular one, on the use of social media for acquiring customers. So on this next slide, you can see how influential social medias can be, how many visitors they get, how many active users they have. So you can see that if YouTube, for example, were a country, it would be the third most populated place in the world. There are different social media platforms used by different audiences. These audiences are of different age, different demographics. So it's very important that we consider the demographics of our target group, the customers that we would like to buy our products. So, and based on the demographics of that group of people, we will then choose where should we build our social media presence. For example, it's widely known that millennials, they're not keen on using Facebook. Logically, if the business targets younger generations, then we should build our presence in Instagram or TikTok, for example. These are all different types of social media platforms. So just clicking with a click, you can see the actual size of those platforms. As you can see, many of them much bigger than countries. If we establish significant presence in social media, we can then have a huge audience to pull to our landing page or explainer video, etc. Okay, so what makes social networks so valuable for e-commerce is the fact that they have integrated advanced analytics. And as entrepreneurs, we can now target individuals of particular hobbies or interests, specific locations, or even if we already have a number of customers, we can tell the social media platform to search for lookalike audiences. This means that our product will be shown in front of the eyes of customers who share the profile of the ones who already purchased from us. Overall, this allows us to take each element of our website as a variable, and we can change one element at a time and track whether this influences the number of sales. So we can test the product design, the price, the web design, the information we have about the product, and we can see a lot more details by using the reports that social media platforms generate for us. So this naturally brings us to the idea of using analytics for spotting opportunities. So going to the next slide, we can see that we have endless opportunities for testing all kinds of aspects of our digital presence. But it's very important to determine which are the most important metrics that we should pay attention to. Once you pull customers in your website, there are analytical tools that will perhaps show you where exactly those customers click on the website, how long do they stick to the website, to the given page, where exactly do they click. There's applications can be installed to your website that pretty much can show you how people scroll and where the heat maps on the website are in terms of number of clicks. So this allows you to see exactly where the content is not engaging enough and where the sales funnel can be improved. So there is tons of software that you can install on your web page, which will allow you to get to know all kinds of metrics such as organic reach, conversion rate, the bounce rate, or how quickly people leave your website. Okay, and I know many of you perhaps when hear the word e-commerce, they will think of a particular company. Okay, most people when they hear e-commerce, they immediately think of Amazon, and so far we've actually just spoke about how you can sell products or services via your own web page. But now we can speak about a little bit about using data analytics on a particular marketplace, digital marketplace such as Amazon. So on this next slide, I can show you an example of how you can take some information which is widely available on those platforms such as Amazon or eBay, and then test whether this would be a good opportunity for us to engage in business with this particular product. So you can see just a sample product. This is a camera, a digital camera. It's and on this listing in Amazon, we can see the particular sales rank. In this case, the sales rank is 10,000 and something. The sales rank just indicates how popular this item is at the moment. So just to show you what we can possibly do with this information so that we check whether this is an opportunity for us. So on this next image, you can see that there is software applications or websites that provide such service that once you input the sales rank, okay, and then select the given marketplace, for example, we have selected Amazon within the UK, we may have selected Amazon in the US, in Germany, in France, in Italy, in Spain, etc. So this software will help us generate how many sales of this item we can make per month. So having this camera at the rank of 10,000 something, we can then estimate that you can be selling 42 cameras per month. So perhaps this is not a huge number. So maybe you cannot really build a sustained presence in Amazon by selling only 42 items if you rely on a single product. But if you have a number of products, maybe this would be a good opportunity for a side business. And then on the next slide, we can use another data analytics tool that will show us how the price has been fluctuating over time. So the small purple or bluish line indicates how the price of new cameras, this particular camera, has been fluctuating over time. So we can see that the price has not been fluctuating much. It's relatively stable with some drops, but relatively stable. So we cannot really engage in market arbitrage or buying it cheap and selling it expensive. Okay, so at the moment, this doesn't seem to be a good opportunity. But on the next slide, again, information from that same bit of software readily available to everyone, free of charge, of course, we can see that at the very moment, we only have 2 marketplaces that sell this product. So if we are to buy it from Amazon UK or Amazon Germany, stock it and then ship it in different countries, we can actually be the only one entrepreneur selling this product. You can see that based on the information we generated, there is no such particular camera being sold in the US, in Canada, in France, in Italy, or Spain. So this is just a quick example of how data analytics can help us spot opportunities. And I've been also talking through how the minimum viable logic can be executed via the use of some digital tools, which will enable companies to build up their e-commerce presence. I think we have covered enough ground on e-commerce so far. Of course, we can go much deeper, but I would like to leave enough time for questions. Questions, I have to say, can be both on the topic of e-commerce that we just covered or on the program altogether. So feel free to ask me any questions at this point.
So we've had a question, in what way does e-commerce inform the course?
Okay, so e-commerce, I have to say, is a context. So all the tools and frameworks that we share during the course, they can be applicable to multiple contexts. So for example, this idea of creating a minimum viable product and testing and getting feedback to make sure that the product is as relevant to the target market as possible, this idea is actually transferable to different sort of business contexts. So this is something that we touch upon actually in great detail in some of the units. And there is units that deal with the financing, and the minimum viable product idea also is a good tool that will alleviate the financial burdens of companies. So throughout the program, we have many units that touch upon some really practical elements that can be applicable within multiple business contexts. So now I just wrapped all those tools within the context of e-commerce, but I could have done similar with context of, let's say, entrepreneurship, which is entrepreneurship within bigger organizations, how we can create a new initiative in already existing business. Or I could have wrapped this within the context of family business.
Who is the ideal applicant?
The ideal applicant is somebody who is self-motivated, somebody who would like to advance their understanding about contemporary business developments. Business nowadays is so much different from the business 10 years ago, and the program is program is highly relevant. It deals with the latest developments. So individuals who are naturally inclined and interested or curious to know about those latest business developments would be well suited for the program. Also, individuals who have experience in various contexts and may be interested to utilize those experiences either for starting a new business or for starting a new initiative within already existing business. That's the type of individuals that are good fit for the course.
Thank you. You spoke about the final project earlier. I was wondering if you have any the ways that the individual modules are assessed.
The assessment for each individual, okay. So different units utilize different assessments. So we try to have multiple and various assessments for the program. And I have to say each one of the assignments are highly practical. So I can give you an example with the very first unit. And the first assignment will ask you to consider your own skills and resources, and the resources and skills you need to develop in order to further a business idea. So you have to start off with a business idea, your own business idea, and you'll be reflecting on your own skills and resources. And pretty much it would be a roadmap of how you're going to get there. So the second assignment then for the first unit again requires you to think exactly of the next milestone of how you can execute this idea. So almost it's going to be like a learning plan, for example, that will ask you to submit, and this is going to be assessed. This is your second assignment for the first unit. And then the third coursework, again for the same unit, which is the entry unit, would be an interview with an entrepreneur. And the objective of this assignment would be to pretty much retell the story of this entrepreneur's whole journey, their entrepreneurial journey through the concepts that would be introduced in the unit. So other units will have different types of assignments. For one of the units, you have to create your own video. And for other assignments, you have to work in groups, trying to work with multiple people. You will have assignments that deal exclusively on, plans of how you can possibly obtain funding, both internally, if you're working, if you're trying to pursue entrepreneurship within the context of already existing organization, or externally, if you're trying to start up a new entity. So there's all kinds of different assignments, and all of them highly related to the entrepreneurial journey that each one of the units will mimic. That entrepreneurial journey you have to go through, and each one of those units will take you through the entrepreneurial journey. And ideally, the outcome would be that final project, but the project will be on something that you're genuinely interested in doing. So it would be, again, on your own idea and your own initiatives.
Will the course content be in a similar format to this webinar?
Well, there is lots of visuals in the course content. There's lots of videos of particular companies. They would be presented as case studies. However, we don't all have to gather up at the same time and look at the video at the same time. So everybody can take their own pace. They would have a couple of days to complete the steps that we have created, the content that we have shared in the unit. So in terms of live sessions, we would not have live sessions. We would have videos that you can go through. You will have written content, text that you can go through. There will be allocated readings that you have to be familiar with, and we will have different discussions, forums. And in those forums, everybody is going to participate, and they need to comment on each other's ideas and opinions, but it doesn't have to be based on instant messaging. You would have a couple of days to access those materials and then comment on them, provide feedback, etc.
Providing I pass the course, will there be a graduation?
Could you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, sure. Providing I pass, will there be graduation?
Upon the completion of all the units and upon the completion of the final project, you can successfully complete the whole program and then graduate with a Master of Science.
Great, thank you. And they'll also be invited to attend on campus as well.
Yes, that's absolutely true. You're welcome to attend the graduation ceremony as well, and we are looking forward of you coming and visiting on campus and all. So that's would be absolutely fabulous, but it's a long way to go until then.
Do you examine entrepreneurship in different global contexts?
Yes, we do. We focus on entrepreneurship both locally but also internationally, and we focus on companies that would like to expand their presence in multiple geographic locations, multiple countries. We look at the different challenges, how we can assess the opportunity for going international, how to be careful not to make mistakes when we're going international, how to pivot, how to adjust to the local markets, how to study the characteristics of the particular audiences, the particular target groups, and how we can provide the most value for those audiences. So yes, we do study and apply entrepreneurship in multiple contexts.
Because the learning isn't face-to-face, how does student interaction work?
So the student interaction works over forums. So there would be graded and non-graded discussions in the actual forums. So you'd be given a small task or a question, and you would be asked to provide your opinion, your take on that question, or your impression on a particular topic. And then you'd be also asked to critique and comment on other people's perspectives as well. So this would create a very good flow of communication within Engage, which is the platform we use for delivering the program. But also, I've noticed that many of our students also gather up in informal groups and chats, and they keep in touch. So this is very good to see communication happening both on the official formal platform, but also in other types of platforms, social medias, etc.
Are we allowed to use the University of Bath facilities, such as the library?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this program is a full-fledged program. It's no different from all our programs, and you have the same rights as the rights of all other students. And it does not matter whether it's on campus or off campus, whether it's offline or online. You would have access to all the resources. With your University of Bath username and password, your credentials, you can access all the materials in the library. And in each unit, we have a reading list, and each one of the readings you can access via the library website. So those materials are all digital, which is extremely easy for you to access.
How are we graded, for example, A, B, C, and what is a passing grade?
So you would be graded on multiple assignments. So each assignment carries a different weight. And I believe the passing grade is 50.
Is there the option to pause between modules if needed?
Yes, you have that option, and this is an option that some of our students are very keen on because they're busy professionals, and depending on how their timetable is organized and structured, they may take this as an option.
Are all the case studies used within the course current?
So all the case studies are extremely current. So we have used our extensive network of entrepreneurs and companies. So many of those case studies, we created videos of the stories of the actual entrepreneurs who have founded the business. Some of those are still developing the business. So you can pretty much get a real-time track record of how the business has been developing over time. So these entrepreneurs, they're very close to their businesses, so they share lots of details about the entrepreneurial journey they have initiated, and they share lots of ideas about how they could have done better, how they could have approached the process in a more efficient way. And I believe all of our students would benefit from those very, very recent, I have to say, case studies that we have developed exclusively for that master program.
I think we've got time for one last question. You say this is a practice-based course. How much research informs the course?
So research does inform the course, and research informs the knowledge of the people who deliver on the course as well. Yet we actually utilize the research that's highly relevant to practice. So you would not be in a position to look at some very, very abstract theory and that you don't understand how it relates to practice. This would never be the case because the people who deliver the course, they're experts both on the research side and also the practice side. They have experience working with actual companies, so they can translate research into actual practice. And I mentioned a couple of times that the structure of the program has been set up in a way that it will mimic an entrepreneurial journey. It will help you start an entrepreneurial journey. So you'll be building up on an idea as you go through the program, and you would be building up on your understanding of how businesses operate, how businesses are developed, how businesses are managed and scaled up. So these are all highly practical concepts and ideas.
Thank you very much. I'm now launching some poll questions, so if people could help us out and answer these questions.
Yep. Thank you everyone for joining in, and I look forward to seeing you in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for attending the webinar.